Ladies and gentlemen, this is your old pal CHH. Welcome back to Planet CHH. And I've got an awesome guest today, a guy I've known for a very long time, the man, the myth, the legend, Pizowell. And thank you so much for being here, Piz. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. How's everything with you?
I'm fantastic, dude. Everything's great. 2020, it's all 2024 is going to be all CHH, hopefully. And I
Okay.
hope it's the same for you. I see you're rocking the orange. How many colors did you get on the for the pop film? Do you have a soiree of colors?
I have orange, I have red, and I have black. And I don't remember what other colors they had, but I mean, red just matches, just the decor. It's horror.
Yeah.
Black, of course, is the one that came with it, and orange is just, it's Halloweeny.
It
So
looks good. It looks good.
thank you, thank you.
I like it. What kind of shirt are we rocking today? It looks like a moon. What do we got? Oh! I
Pretty
thought that
lady.
was a moon for a second.
No, we're rocking the pretty lady.
Hell yeah. Well, Piz, it's been a while since I've had you on the channel, and I know the people always love it. It's always a pleasure for me. First off, congratulations. Your channel I think you're at like 60,000 subs, or you're knocking on it.
Pretty close, yeah, pretty close.
That's just so amazing, man. I really think within I'd like to say 2 years, maybe you can get that what is it, the silver play? Is it the
I would love,
100K?
yeah, I would love that. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's a goal. I think if I can get that silver play button, I think I'd be, you know, I'd be happy. It'd be a
It's like a
nice little thing to
lifetime
hang up.
achievement award, man. I mean, you've been doing this for
Sure.
yeah. And
Yeah, a long time. Been doing it for a long time.
you
Yeah.
have. And I'm sure it's really rewarding too that Jeremy is, I mean, he's a big part of the channel now. And for the older viewers that were watching you, I remember there was a time where you were kind of trying to ease him into it and you would
Mhm.
talk about Jeremy. And now I'm sure he's just like, well, when are we recording next?
He is he's a ham. And when you point a camera at him or you point your phone at him, it's like he gets into character.
Hmm.
It's like he's preparing to be recorded. Even when you're not I'll just have like my phone up, like doing like this. And like if he thinks I'm getting ready to record him, I'll see him go. He gets into it. So and he hams it up and he's just, he's just a funny guy. I think he does and says things that he knows will get like a laugh out of me or like a reaction out of me.
Hmm.
So but yeah, I mean, he's a huge part of the channel now, and I think I don't know if I'd say I eased him into it. I mean, I think for a while I wasn't quite sure of how he would take to it or how people would take to him, but I mean, he took to it like a fish to water,
Fish to
and
water, yeah.
all of my audience they just love him. So I mean, they really
Mhm.
embraced him and they love him to death.
When you do the soda episode, City will text me and say, "Hey, when we get home and I cook dinner, we got to watch the soda shows." She loves them, and we
Yeah,
love it because
yeah.
we never know what he. It's funny because on the thumbnails there'll be pictures of Prince, and I'm like, "What does Prince have to do with?" And I was like, "Oh, Jeremy's gonna start spitting some facts about Prince in this video or something."
Mhm, mhm, yeah, or he'll think that I'll ask him, "Who do you think would like this weird, crazy soda?" And he'll just throw out some random Ronald Reagan, or you know what I mean, like just yeah, Prince, just some
It's
random person. Yeah,
It puts a smile on my wife's face every time. She loves it, and it's just great. So congratulations on all that, man. I know for people like me, like I said, you were a big inspiration for me to do YouTube. It's just I want to see you get it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm hoping we get it. I think within 2 years, I think is a reasonable goal for you.
yeah. I hope
That's
so.
what 40,000 subs. I think you can do that. So
Yeah, I hope so. I hope
so.
so.
All right, so Piz, man. So what I've been doing on the channel lately, people seem to really dig these. Call it a podcast. Well, it's not really a podcast, but I guess it's in the general term, that's what this is. But I did a video a couple weeks ago talking about just some of the stuff about physical media people don't really talk about a whole lot online, not taboo stuff per se, but one of them was like the reality about slipcovers. And so I got some of my friends like Mid-Level Media and Garrett, which you know, and we had an honest conversation about slipcover obsession. Is it getting in the way? And I was thinking about another idea. I was like, you know, it would be really great to have a conversation with somebody on not only the realities, but I think like the ups and downs of collecting physical media over a long period of time. And when I said
Mm.
"Yeah, that would be a great conversation, who could I get for that? I was like, Pizowell, this is literally the perfect guest because not only does he do reviews for a long time, but clearly you've been a physical media collector for a long time. I think it would be nice to kind of go through your timeline of getting into physical media, when you started, I think, consciously collecting and that sort of thing. And I think it would be safe to kind of start in the beginning. Was your family like a lot of the families in the 80s? You get the VHS player down the road and then you started renting the tapes because I'm assuming the sell through prices on tapes back in the day didn't exist. So if you wanted
Mhm.
a movie, it was like what, $80 back then?
Gosh, or some more, yeah, I mean, there was no, like, home video market. It would like, you can find some old VHS tapes that'll have that retail price on it, like the video store price, and they're, 80, 90, $100 or more. So, yeah, there was it wasn't, they definitely weren't priced for the consumer.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
was that a safe assumption though? Did the family get the VHS player and it was basically rentals as a kid?
Yeah, so I remember pretty vividly my stepdad coming home with our first VCR, and the very first movie that we rented, I think it pretty sure it was the exact same night. It was, Throw Mama from the Train with, Billy Crystal and
Mhm.
Danny DeVito in it. And, yeah, I remember it, I mean, that just, of course, opened up this, immeasurable world. It seemed just immense of the video store and just an infinite number of movies to rent and watch.
And do you kind of remember at what point did owning movies start to become a little bit more of a reality for you? Was it early 90s? Because I think, if I correct me if I'm wrong, weren't there a couple titles in the late 80s that kind of became the breakthrough sell-through titles, like massive blockbuster movies? Like I think I talked to Wes about this. It might have been an Indiana Jones movie where it was like 1995 or 29.95 even. Do you remember something like that?
The first one I remember was E.T. That was the big, like, you can own this movie. That it was like a big deal, like, "Holy crap, you can own this thing. You can watch it whenever you want. You don't have to wait for it to be on HBO or, circle it in the TV guide." But it was E.T., and I remember, we were I was chomping at the bit to get that copy of E.T., and funny story, we had ordered it from this little grocery store, that was nearby. They were a half grocery store, but they were a grocery store, but they also rented videos. So I rented a lot of videos from them,
Mhm.
and, they had they had said, "Hey, ET will be here on this day." So my mother and I went to the store to pick up ET on that day, and it wasn't there. There'd been some sort of delay, and man, I got pissed. My mother literally had to drag me out of the store. I was so upset
Oh my
that
god.
my ET was not there. I remember calling the guy behind the counter. I called him a craphead, and I got in big trouble over that. But, yeah, she literally had to drag me out of the store because I was irate.
Oh my god.
I wanted my ET, you know?
Mhm. You know,
So
you hit on something, and this could be a whole nother topic one day, for the because it's this is something we'll talk about later on in the video, but I'm impressed and surprised by the number of younger viewers that have reached out to me about physical media and getting into it. I guess Gen Z, if you will, and, when you say grocery store, I think there's a big, "Huh?" And I don't think people realize because I got a little bit of this in my life too. The idea that grocery stores rented movies
Mhm,
is, I
mhm.
mean, it sounds like such a foreign concept to people now, but it was a, pretty
Yeah.
normal thing back then.
Oh yeah, I mean they had their wall that was just all movies, and the rest of the store was your typical kind of small town grocery store. You could rent your movie and then go buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk, and or go buy the popcorn off the shelf and a 2 liter of Coke, and you're ready. You know what I mean? You're done.
It'd be funny, Piz, we talk about this. Everybody tries to recreate their video stores at their home, and some people like Mondo Video and others have done an incredible job. Somebody needs to be the first to recreate the grocery store video store and have like a freezer median with like food, like pork chops and stuff in one section, and then the video wall on the other, and like a little cash register to check out.
That would be funny. You know, it's so weird. Like I can remember the layout of that store, and I mean, it's been just so many years, but like when you walked in, right to your right was the wall. And then you'd go around the corner and there's like the deli. And then on the far end they had the video games. It was like Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man and whatnot. And so yeah, it's so weird, but like it's like I could walk through that store blindfolded now and still know where everything is. Yeah. Mm.
So, Piz, like when I was growing up, eventually I kind of got the family's home video collection by the time I was, I don't know, preteens and things like that. Did you have a similar situation to where over time when you started getting tapes, did they kind of start to congregate maybe into your bedroom or something, or they just became known as kind of yours? If at first they were kind of like family videotapes that you guys bought?
I don't remember, like, other than E.T., I don't remember us, like, owning anything for a long time as far as movies are concerned. I recorded a ton of stuff off of television. Like, I probably had Halloween recorded on 8 different blank tapes in SLP mode. You know what I mean? I probably had Jaws on at least 3 or 4.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I had a huge collection of blank tapes that I'd recorded stuff on, movies off of television and whatnot. So that was sort of that, and E.T. was maybe the original collection.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily inherit anything. I kind of built it from scratch, really.
Is the whereabouts of all those old tapes, are they gone, you think, or?
Oh, yeah, they're long, long gone. Yeah, I mean, some of them I think I just watched over and over again until, like, you know yeah. I
But
mean, yeah.
I ask because I don't know if you've noticed, you probably have, there's, like, this market of people now that will go on eBay and try to buy copies of movies that people recorded to watch the
To
commercials.
watch the commercials, yeah. Those old school commercials of, like, the '80s and '90s, yeah, those are, yeah, but see, what I would do is I would I would try to cut out the commercials. So, like, as soon as a commercial would start, I would pause the recording.
Right.
So, like, you'd get the first couple of seconds of the commercial, but then, like, when the movie would start again, I'd be like, trying to get the movie to start. So I'd always miss, like, it'd take a second for the VCR to start recording. So I'd miss a few seconds of the movie when it came back on. So, like, all of these recordings were just so janky, but that's just how I tried to do. I tried to cut out those
Mhm.
commercials.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, and it's funny, I believe you're a fan of them too, there's such a culture for it now. I think the Purple Stuff Podcast, which is Dinosaur Dracula,
Mhm, mhm.
they do podcast episodes. They'll pick them. I think they just did one on Rocky. No, not Rocky Horror. The one with the man-eating plant with Rick Moranis in it. What is that movie called? Little Shop
Uh,
of Horrors.
Little Shop of
Little
Horrors,
Shop.
yeah.
They did an episode on that where they played a VHS and just talked about the commercials that would play on this VHS tape that was recorded. So it's fascinating that there's such a market, or a market, maybe not be right, but there's a fascination with this whole
Yeah,
tape thing with the commercials.
yeah, yeah. When you started to mention the commercials, Dinosaur Dracula was the first thing that I thought of, because he'll post, like, just those commercials, like,
Yeah.
and I love watching them because, I mean, of course, they take you back.
Yeah. So kind of bring us up to speed on, all right, Piz is getting a little bit older. He's, an adult now. DVDs. Let me ask you this. Do you remember when you first heard about DVDs or even saw DVDs? Was it I think DVD was a thing officially market-wise in like 96. Does that sound about right?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah. I mean, when did like, I remember I started collecting VHS first
Okay.
because I found this, there was a seller on eBay, and they had to have been a former video store owner because they had everything. Whatever movie I would look up, they had it, and they would sell it for like $1.99 with like, or like $2.99 and like $1.99 to ship, like
Mhm.
just
Wow.
dirt cheap. And I bought tons of VHSs from them. So I started with a nice little VHS collection. And then that eventually segued over into DVD. I want to say, I don't know if it was, I mean, I'm guessing it was Walmart where I first came across them, but really, when I think of DVDs, it's Sam Goody. Um, because my buddies and I, we would go to Sam Goody. We had a Sam Goody in the next town, and they had, Walmart's got the normie DVD collection, right? Well, Sam Goody had everything. They had all the Anchor Bays, and they had all the collector's editions, and they had everything. So that's
Mhm.
when I think of DVD and, like, the dawning of DVD. I always think of Sam Goody because they just had everything. And I slowly started to, I don't remember what the first, actually, I think the very first DVD I ever bought was The Dentist with Corbin Burnson. Why that was the first, I have no idea. Maybe that was just the first one I saw that was affordable, and I was like, okay, I like that movie. Let's get it. So, but that's what started the DVD collection, was The Dentist.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, people know you as a really big horror fan. Did you said you were buying VHS tapes at the time. Was it mostly horror VHS tapes or
It was pretty much entirely horror. Yeah, like, I remember I got like the fancy VHS for Happy Birthday to Me. It had like it had this kind of gatefold front on it, and then it was actually really nice. But yeah, it was pretty much entirely all horror, as I recall. I don't remember. I mean, other than movies like Heat, movies like True Romance, some of my all-time favorites. Of course, I got them as well. I got like the big double tape of
yeah.
Heat, and I had like the big double tape of Casino.
I have
So
that till this
yeah, so
day.
there were some non-horror mixed in there, but it was mostly horror.
This is gonna sound like maybe a somewhat of a weird question, but I'm gonna try to ask this as in an expressive way as possible. When you're buying movies at this point in your life, because I like to try to get into the minds of people during this time, were you a conscious physical media collector, or was buying movies at that point just a way to feel some sort of connectivity to these movies that you really like? Because nowadays, if you like a movie, you can find shirts, pants, drawers,
Oh, yeah.
blankets, hats. But back then, I don't think that was the case, right, for a lot of these. So can you kind of break that down for me?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that. I mean, I think there was one of the definite draws was just the physical ownership of it. Like, I can watch it whenever I want. And even then, I mean, like, there were some, like, the Natural Born Killers. You had just the Warner Brothers VHS, but then you had like this really nice double tape VHS from, forget what, I think it was like Trimark or something, put it out, and it was uncut, and it had all the deleted scenes, and like, I had to have that. I
Mhm.
had to have that because it had the extras on it. Like, we're all about extras, right? Well, this was like, oh my god, there's more to the movie. Okay, well, I want that. I want that. Um, so I think it was about physical ownership, being able to watch it whenever I wanted to, but, there were those movies that had the little extra bits and pieces on them. Even like some of those early Anchor Bay VHS tapes, if you played them all the way to the end, like you'd get interviews or you'd get like a little making of, like there were, even on VHS tapes, there were extras, you know what I mean? So I was
And
drawn to those things as well.
that's a good segue. So, can you kind of express what it was like being a physical media slash horror fan collector during the really the heyday of the Anchor Bay era? Because one thing that you just kind of touched on was there's obviously people that collect Anchor Bay DVDs and things like that, and people are very much interested in them. But as you kind of alluded to, Anchor Bay was also uh, putting out some really nice VHS tapes. I'm assuming that was where kind of the start of your Anchor Bay collect. Can you kind of talk to me about that time?
Yeah, I mean the early days, honestly, frustration was really is the word that comes to mind because I wanted all of it, but like I had the money to buy none of it. I was like, I was broke. I was a poor kid. So like I would go to Sam Goody and just drool over all of these Anchor Bay releases. And occasionally I'd be able to grab one or grab, I got like the fancy Dawn of the Dead in the case, like the plastic I forget, but like you can display it standing up.
And this is a
And
VHS release?
this was a VHS release.
I
I
don't
got
think I've
that
ever
one.
seen a picture of this, but I'll have to look that up later.
I got the, if you want to pause for just a second, I've actually got the zombie VHS. I'll run and grab. Oh, here is the zombie collector's edition,
Mm,
Anchor Bay,
look at that.
and it's got these little. You can stand it, you can display it standing up, and this one had extras on it. This was a collector's edition, and reversible sleeve.
Oh, wow. No
Yeah,
kidding. I would
yeah,
have never
yeah.
even thought to take out a sleeve on a VHS like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. I mean, Anchor Bay did so many firsts. You mentioned slipcases. I think they were the first with slipcases. They were the first with that I know of that did the collector's editions, that did extras, that, really they had the collector in mind. They had the hardcore horror fan in mind who would pay, who would want to buy Zombie on this kind of release and display it standing up in your collection.
Yeah.
So and this one has the theatrical trailer, television and radio spots, and just on a VHS. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
remarkable.
yeah.
Can you kinda talk to me, though? You said, you would look at these and say, "I wish," but, we
Mhm.
talk about the prices of stuff today. Can you kind of break down what you remember the prices being of stuff like that during that time?
Oh gosh. I want to say uh, some of these had to be upwards of 25 to 30 bucks as I recall. Um Especially when you got into like the DVDs. And Anchor Bay put out some really nice DVD editions. Um you're looking at dropping 30 bucks on something like that. To the best of my memory, which even if they were like 20 bucks, 25 bucks, I mean, that was still kind of outside my price range at that time.
Mhm.
So,
'Cause I hear
um,
horror stories about Suncoast, and I don't know if that was the same price-wise as, like, a Sun. I feel like Suncoast was just extremely premium. Suncoast is where you go if nobody else had what you were looking for, I feel. Not really, but, like, if you were gonna spend that kinda money is what I'm getting at.
I think Sam Goody was the equivalent of that because everything I remember because keep in mind too, they didn't just have the movies. They had like those early McFarlane figures, and they had they did have horror shirts. They had all kinds of stuff there. All of it I wanted,
Right.
but it was you paid a pretty significant markup for it.
Mhm.
Like their $5 bin was $10. So,
Mhm.
I actually got a lot of movies out of their $10 bin or $9.99 or whatever. So that was kind of where I would go and, pine over the Anchor Bay releases, and then I'd end up, slouching to the 9.99 bin and then, pick out a movie out of there. But that's how I discovered a lot of really good movies.
Right. Now, this is gonna be something that's probably gonna get brought up again because history just tends to repeat itself, especially with technology. Um you're buying Anchor Bay VHSs, you're building your collection, getting these really cool movies you love. At what point do you start considering, you know what, maybe I need to check into this DVD thing?
Mhm.
Because I feel like whenever a format comes out, it's usually a good 3 or 4 years before the modern or the average family decides to actually make the jump, or the average consumer, not really family, just makes the jump. It's like the stuff kind of takes a while. And I think DVD players were probably mega expensive, and they were big too when they first came out.
Mhm.
So can you kind of talk to me about that transition?
I don't I to the best of my knowledge, I remember making that jump pretty quickly. And also, like, once DVD happened, I was pretty much straight DVD. So, like, I don't remember any kind of layover or anything like that. It was like, okay, this is the new medium. This is a much better medium,
Mhm.
quality wise. You can put, a lot of additional materials on a disc that you can't put on a VHS. Of course, they're slimmer, so they take up less, physical space on your shelves. So yeah, my memory is of diving in head first.
And do you recall, because I think the average person too at that point, or a lot of people waited till, I think a lot of people in history give PlayStation 2 credit for making DVD go from having a certain market share to being boom.
Mhm.
Everybody has a DVD player in the house now. Do you recall if you made the jump before the PS2? That was late 2000 when it came out, and the average family probably had a PlayStation 2 by like 2002 in their home.
I don't
I know I'm asking some really weird questions, but I'm
I
fascinated by
I
that.
I would say probably around that same time is when I got my first DVD player. It wasn't a PlayStation 2, but I wanna say it was around that time, maybe a year later, but it was right around that time.
Mhm. And so let's talk about, like, with your VHS collection at that point. Did you have a pretty, sizable collection of VHSs?
I had a pretty good collection. I mean, I had, all of the Friday the 13th. I had that Nightmare on Elm Street box set, which was funny because Jeremy loves Freddy. He would literally carry that whole box set around with him, just carry it around until, like, eventually the box that held all the tapes together just wore out. And then he would do this where he would carry around like a random VHS with him for a while. Like, I don't know, I remember he did the same thing with Freddy versus Jason. I'd also like catch him all the time watching Freddy versus Jason. Like, I'd walk by his room and he'd just be sitting there watching Freddy versus Jason. um, but yeah, I mean, I had a pretty decent collect. I don't know if you've ever seen those little. It's like it looks like it's made out of wood. It's got the little shelves you pull out, and you put the tapes in, and then you close them.
Sure,
It,
sure. Those little tape decks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had one of those, and to the best of my knowledge, like, it was full. Both shelves were loaded with VHSs. So I mean, it was a decent little collection, as I recall.
So when you get to this point, we're talking early 2000s now. VHS really doesn't die, I
Mhm.
don't think, till about 2005, 6. I think in the history books, the last VHS came from, like, from a big company. Obviously, these small, there's still people making these today, but I think a movie called Cars was like made, purchased, to order, like in a Disney magazine or something. Which, oddly enough, I think that goes for a lot of money. But my question is, you say you make the jump in those early 2000s, but what about movies? Were there any movies that you would get on VHS instead of you mentioned Freddy versus Jason that came out in '03 on home video, that clearly got a DVD release. And do you have any movies that you can recall where you're like, I kind of want to get this on VHS? Or when you started doing DVD, was it done with VHS?
To the best of my memory, it was pretty much done. And to be honest, I think the Freddy versus Jason VHS was like a gift. Like, somebody gave that to me, and I gave it to Jeremy, or Jeremy took it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, once DVD happened, it was I didn't really look back. And then of course, then it became like, oh well, all these movies that I had on VHS, now I've got to get them on DVD.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So by this point, um, again, you know, when it comes to DVD, you know, are you more actively buying movies that you wanna have or stuff that comes out or because at the same time, this is, I would say, the height, well, maybe not the height, but it was still a huge high for Blockbuster, 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can you kinda paint me a picture of what your process is with movies coming out? Maybe you go to the theater and see something, you like it, and you know you wanna see it again. I mean, are we renting a lot of movies during this time? Are we buying more movies? What was the kind of the scales on that?
I mean, I was still renting. We still had a pretty cool little video store in my area that had a really nice horror collection, both VHS and slowly DVD. Um, and so I was still renting, occasionally going and seeing something in the theater. But I think most of the movies that I was buying on DVD were movies that like I'd already seen and I loved, that I knew I wanted to be in my collection in the best possible quality.
Mhm.
So, um, a lot of that early DVD collecting was really just getting the classics. Like, I remember just, like, whatever, just buying stuff, just like, "Okay, well, wait a minute, what do I need now? Oh, I need Reanimator. Let's go buy Reanimator. Oh, there's a good price for one. Okay, Reanimator." And or whatever. So a lot of it was just it was I felt like it was almost catching up.
Yeah.
So a lot of the newer stuff, yeah, I'd rent, but it was catching up with, the classics and
What
getting
do
getting on DVD.
what are you doing with the VHS at this time? Because a lot of people, they start to say, "Oh, yeah, eventually I got rid of them." Some people throw them away, some people donate them. I mean, what are we doing with your VHS collection during this time?
I I I I wish I knew what happened to my VHS collection because I definitely didn't throw them away, but I think I just kinda turned a blind eye to them, and Jeremy kinda took possession of them. And he would occasionally break one if he got mad. That happened a few times where if the cable went out or if he got a little upset, I'd hear a crash and I'd go look. I'd go look and like, oh, there's a VHS tape smashed in the floor. Okay, well, that one's gone. So yeah, I think most of the time when people ask like what happened to your VHS collection, because Jeremy. I think a lot of those kind of they became Jeremys
Yeah.
and some of them ended up in pieces.
I'd be remiss not to just get a few memories from you on this. Now, a lot of guys that I talked to that were, collecting during this time, when I asked them, was the Anchor Bay era uh the most is was that the true golden era? Was that the most fun era? What are your thoughts on if you agree with that? And can you tell me some of your favorite, if you can remember some of the absolute greatest memories of finding maybe the coolest Halloween and Dawn of the Dead edition of Anchor Bay, or any kind of cool memories you have from finding tapes that maybe you didn't even know existed until you saw them? Like, this is such a nice collector's edition.
Yeah. I just remember it being very exciting. Like once it was exciting and frustrating, and then it just became very exciting
Mhm.
because it's hard to describe. Like if you were in the video store, or if you were in like Sam Goody or Suncoast or wherever, and you saw that little the little the clipper ship there on the back or on the spine or something. Whether you knew what that movie was or not, you were gonna buy it or rent it because like that's the kind of like trust that like if you were a horror fan and you saw that Anchor if a movie was being released by Anchor Bay, it had to be good.
Right.
So it was an exciting time, and it was a time too where Anchor Bay was bringing all of the Italian horror over, so that was like the first time I was introduced to Deep Red via a VHS release very similar to this. Um, and that that blew my mind. I'd never seen giallo before.
Right.
Um, or like Zombie. I remember watching Zombie for the first time and just being like blown away by this is it's super stylish. It looks great, and like the gore is unbelievable.
Right.
So it was very exciting because it was opening up this whole new area of horror to, I think, everybody. So exciting is definitely the word that comes to mind.
Did you ever put your eyes on now by today, these releases go for a lot of money and they are coveted. Specifically this Halloween release. Did you ever put your eyes on a release where there's a snow globe inside of it and it's got orange VHS tapes and
Well, let me go back to the last question. You asked if it was the golden era.
right.
I think it was I think it was definitely one of the golden eras. I think it was maybe the first golden era. But when I look back on it, it's the golden era that like shines the brightest for me again, because it was introducing me to a whole new area of horror that I'd never experienced before, while at the same time just like knocking the ball out of the park with all these great releases and really, like I said, with the emphasis on the collector. So it was the first golden era, and I think it was an incredibly important time.
Mm.
But to answer your question, yes. And I can remember going to the mall for the very first time, a real mall for the very first time. And it probably was a Suncoast. And I'd never seen like some of these Anchor Bay releases before. Or like, they had like the 18-inch tall like Leatherface and Michael Myers figures, and like I'm blown away. I'm just surrounded by all this cool stuff, and they had all the Anchor Bay releases and the special editions. And I remember seeing that one with the snow globe and the VHS inside. And I was just like, my God, this is, I mean, it's like 2001. I'm completely blown away. And of course, they wanted $40-$50 for that thing, way outside of my price range. But yeah, I definitely remember seeing it. And it's interesting that you bring that one up, because I'm someone who, I'm still a bit of a kid at heart. And, now that I'm fortunate enough to have a little money in the bank, occasionally I'll go on these little scavenger hunts, these nostalgia-induced scavenger hunts, and I pick things like this up.
Oh, that's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's it. Yeah. So this was my most recent nostalgia-induced scavenger hunt on eBay.
That is gorgeous. Look at that.
And the snow globe is still full of water. The VHS is in, pretty good condition. So yeah, this was the last little nostalgia-induced scavenger hunt that I went.
That is beautiful.
To get this. Yeah. And this was the 20th anniversary. I mean, think about it. We're
45,
almost 46 into it. This was 20th anniversary. So
incredible.
Yeah.
That is such a cool piece. Yeah, because I think a lot of us do this. You're not trying to recreate your childhood, but you're trying to almost fit. There's this. I don't know if you've paid attention to wrestling at all lately, because this Cody Rhodes had one of the biggest wrestling stories of all time. Wrestling's like really big again, and his thing was finish the story. That's his whole thing. It's like when you think back to these items that you had, or you not had, but when you saw and they captivated you, or that you were like, oh my God, I need that. You're finishing the story, and you're getting some of these cool things. I believe you had a story one time. You said it earlier, this Leatherface statue that you saw, and you asked the clerk, can I get the price on that? And you said basically you almost keeled over when he was like $80, because that's astronomical. I mean, $80 is still a lot of money, but I can ask for forgiveness later when I come home, and if I bought that for $80, that's to the life. But back then,
Yeah, back then, I mean, that was that again, that was yeah, that was an astronomical figure. But yeah, so I've completed the story on that one too. A few years ago, I found one on eBay in good shape and had the chainsaw with it and the mallet with it, and I was like, "All right, let's, you only live once." So, I got it.
Now, at that point, with your physical media collecting, did you ever experience any burnout at that point, or was it just,
No. No. I don't remember feeling any kind of burnout. I was just so excited about all these new opportunities to watch movies I'd never seen before and different genre or not genres, but just different, flavors of horror, not just, the typical American, slasher that I grew up with, but like, giallo and um stuff like that. Just really it was super exciting.
it was an exploratory time then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And I'd have to imagine that actually when I ask you if that's the golden era, that's gotta be a pretty big reason why. I mean, you were
Oh,
just it was like opening Pandora's box and,
mhm,
you know.
mhm. Oh, yeah. One absolutely. Yeah.
So coming out of, the Anchor Bay days, but not really coming out of it, um, so with your story, you were how did you start finding a community of people online for, uh collecting? I don't know, did you even search for, like, people that were into collecting physical media on the internet or specifically horror physical media? Like, how did you start? Because 'cause we've kinda talked about this, but I wanna kinda finish, like, the some of the things that I'm a little ambivalent on.
Mhm.
How did you start to, use the internet as a way to find out about movies and people that were into movies and that sort of thing?
I think it kinda all started with, the Arrow in the Head, that website, and there were a couple of other ones that were also out around that time in the early 2000s. I don't remember. I think one might have been called Diabolical Dominion or something like that. But those were kind of the websites I went to learn about, all
Yeah.
the breaking horror news and upcoming releases and all that jazz. And, it was really through Arrow in the Head that I discovered Dead Pit, and through Dead Pit, I discovered really YouTube, to be honest. And that community that was it seemed like, such a small community, at the time of just, a handful of people who liked talking about movies, and a big part of that was doing, like, the update videos, like, DVD updates. "Hey, I picked this up, and I picked this up," and, that was it. That was sort of the early days of or my early days of YouTube. So, it was through the websites, Arrow in the Head, that led me to Dead Pit, and Dead Pit kinda led me to where I am now.
And during this time, I'm gonna guess, tell me if I'm got the years kind of right, 2006, 7, 8, are we around this time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, around that time comes Blu-ray, and I remember when that was just coming out, I don't know, maybe a freshman in high school or something, but I'll never forget, my dad was always a big technology guy, and he was really on the fence about getting into HD, DVD, or Blu-ray, and I think it would be really cool to hear your thoughts on the format war, as
Mm.
people call it. Can you remember, your first experience of hearing about Blu-ray or HD DVD?
I don't remember specifically when I first heard about it. I just became aware that, like, oh, here's another upgrade. DVD was better than VHS. Blu-ray is supposed to be way better than DVD. Picture quality, sound quality, even more extras, and even smaller, you know, profile or what have you. So it takes up less shelf space. So I mean, I was excited about all that, but then of course at the same time, and I remember, the debate online of like, well, it's something else is going to come along soon, so I'm just going to stick with DVD, and I don't want to upgrade everything, and upgraded everything from VHS to DVD, so I'm just going to stick with DVD for a while. Um, So I just remember it being like, okay, so here's a new format that's better, that's an improvement over the last format. So, let's go.
So you were optimistic from the get-go? Because I know a lot of people expect, like my mom, for instance. My dad was, like I said, he was all about it. My mom was like, it's a gimmick. It's not gonna be around.
Mhm.
DVD's gonna win. This is gonna, because it really was a three-part war, it felt like. It was HD, DVD, Blu-ray, and people that were like, "No,
Mhm.
DVD."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it reminds me of when compact discs started to make their way into the market over cassette tapes. And people were going like, it's oh, so what? You can just skip straight. It's not that, something else will come along right after cassette tapes, and it'll be even, or right after compact discs, and it'll be even better. This is just a fad. It'll be over before long. Blah blah blah. Of course, that didn't happen. I do remember a little bit of that, of the war. I don't from the best of my knowledge, from my memory, was I think I just took sort of a sit back and wait approach of like, well, let's see, like, I, I know I did not go HD DVD, even during the wars. I think I went pretty much straight Blu-ray, but I don't remember if I waited until one or the other, to be honest. I don't remember. Um, but yeah, it seems to me like that whole format war was over pretty quickly, and it became apparent fairly early on that
Mhm.
Blu-ray was gonna win.
And I believe when Sony PlayStation 3 was coming out in '06, and it was a Blu-ray player, that probably,
That put it over the top, yeah.
a lot of people think that Sony is responsible for, the success of whatever format it is, like it pushed DVD to become the home format, and the same with Blu-ray. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
you talk about those little feet that were on the Anchor Bay ones. Did you know that HD DVDs had those little nubbins on them, so you could set because I have a few HD DVD cases have the little feet on them, so you could stand them straight up. And
I've actually got a few, 'cause there was a time, I guess this was toward the end, where they were like, "Here's HD DVD," um, but they'll just play on, like, your old DVD player, or maybe even like I don't remember, but they were just trying to, they'd lost the war, they were just trying to push out whatever remaining, that they had, and they would play on just whatever, and I bought a few. I don't remember if mine had feet on them, but I've got a few, at least a couple
Mhm.
back there.
I have Army of Darkness on HD DVD.
I think I may have that one too. I've got so many freaking Army of Darkness releases. I've probably got it too.
Yeah. So do you remember what maybe your first Blu-ray was?
Hmm.
Because I can't really remember you know, what the launch titles really were for Blu-ray.
I honestly don't remember either. Um, I kind of remember this bundle of early Blu-rays that I got. And it was stuff like, and I may be mistaken, but I want to say it was something like that Serenity, like Joss Whedon movie Serenity, and like maybe Hellboy or something. I don't remember. I remembered there was a bundle of Blu-rays was like my first ones. I don't remember which one was exactly the first one, but I want to say that those were in there somewhere. Um, and I don't I remember that first DVD vividly, but I don't remember the first Blu-ray.
Well, here's something I want you to paint me a picture about, because this is what people need to remember about when DVD came out. I think the format was maybe just a little ahead of the television, because I'll never forget in 2006, 2007, we still had CRTs in our home.
Mm,
Now we had nice CRTs, but I'll never forget when we got our first Blu-ray Piz, we didn't hook it up HDMI. We hooked it up red, yellow,
mm,
white cables. So
mhm.
kind of paint me a picture of your technology setup, your TV, and how you watched it, because that's the most interesting thing about the release of Blu-rays. I think people's setup 'Cause I think that could be a part of the reason why people were just like, I don't really see a difference." Well, they're not watching it in HDMI or so if you can remember, what kind of setup did you have?
I went with, I remember getting my first flat screen TV, and I think I had that when I had my just DVDs. 'Cause like I was a pretty early adopter of, the flat screen. Um,
They were still heavy too, weren't they?
they were yeah, they were still heavy. I mean, they were flat, but I mean, they were still
They weren't
pretty
thin.
heavy. They weren't thin, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I remember I remember getting that thing and, hooking it up, and I'm pretty sure that was still when I had DVD. So when Blu-ray came along, I was already an HDMI kinda guy. So I mean, I was ready for it.
And what kind of movies did you start getting when you were becoming a Blu-ray person? I mean, was horror I mean, 'cause it's hard to say when the Friday the 13th stuff was coming out because
Mhm,
DVDs doesn't really go away. As a matter I mean, because I think Friday the 13th is a great example for us to talk about because in 2008, maybe 9, I know that they were very popular in 9. That's when the deluxe DVDs
mhm.
for, like, a series like that come out. So do you kind of are you just kind of, like, shooting at the wind when it comes to getting stuff on Blu-ray, maybe getting stuff you never owned before, that sort of thing?
Well well, and maybe that's why I kinda remember that really odd bundle with, like, Serenity and Hellboy or whatever else was in there, just because, like, maybe, well, I like Serenity, I like Hellboy, but maybe I bought those just because they were available on Blu-ray at the time. Um, like, I don't remember, like, and you gotta keep in mind, even today, DVDs outsell Blu-ray, so DVD is not even remotely dead. Um, so DVD was still, very prominent in stores, more prominent than Blu-rays, I would say, especially in the beginning. And yeah, those Friday the 13th releases, I mean, those were, you mentioned the whole slipcase phenomenon, whether people, you know, do you like slipcases? Do you not like slipcases? Like those were some of the first releases that I remember that had slipcases on them. And I kind of looked at that as a way for Paramount to say, okay, well, these are just DVDs, but hey, look, these are collector's editions. These are fancies. These have some extras on them. And hey, they've got these slipcases on them, and they're lenticular. So um yeah, those releases definitely, I mean, I remember those, and I remember the rush to get those things, and that was, yeah, when Blu-ray was out there, I was still buying DVD.
What was your mindset during this time? Because you said you're quick to adopting to the new formats and, you're getting into Blu-ray, but are you a little annoyed maybe? Like, why are we not getting Friday or did the idea of a Friday the 13th Blu-ray, was that something you would kind of gawk at the time?
I remember, yes, I remember thinking, like, "I'm not gonna get Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Blu-ray. I don't wanna see that movie in super high definition." To take the grain away, to take the film damage away, all the lines and you know what I mean? That's like, that's part of the movie, you know what I mean? So, like, I couldn't imagine seeing Texas Chainsaw Massacre in high def. I remember saying, like, on YouTube, like, "I'm not gonna buy it," I mean, I don't need to, I don't wanna see Texas Chainsaw Massacre in high def. So, yeah, there was, definitely with that movie, I was like, "Nah, I'm not getting it." Of course,
Mhm.
I did. But, I I don't remember, like, when things would come out on Blu-ray. Um, it just seemed like in the beginning, it was a lot of the more mainstream stuff was popping off on Blu-ray. Um, and like, we mentioned Anchor Bay. Anchor Bay seemed slow to segue over into Blu-ray. And I think kind of by that time, Anchor Bay was also, you know, they had one foot out the door. That might have even been, was that after?
The Lustig era when he was kinda
Yeah, I think that might have even been after or toward the end of the Lustig era. I don't recall exactly, but I remember a lot of it just seemed like a slow kinda rollout with Blu-ray,
Mhm.
especially for genre stuff.
So safe to say, even during this time, DVD is probably more than likely what you're buying, maybe 80% of?
I
90?
would say I would say somewhere in that neighborhood. But again, it would be probably not a lot of the newer stuff, but more like, you know, um,
I know it's been a long time.
yeah, like, yeah, I mean, I would say probably, uh, 80 tw yeah, 80/20 might be a good percentage, but, it was mostly older stuff or the classic stuff that was still getting released on DVD.
Yeah. So what I would like to get to now is, you start doing we've talked about your YouTube story, and I implore people to definitely I've kind of done like yearly interviews with Piz. And sometimes I'll ask them the same questions, but I'll ask it in a different way to get more of Piz's story. So always go check those out because they're really cool. But so we've kind of talked about your YouTube. So I'm not going to ask you how you started YouTube and all that because we know about that. But there's this weird time in physical media, especially with horror, that I wasn't a part of really yet. Maybe a little bit, but not really. The time I'm referring to is 2009, 10, 11, 12, and really even some of 13. Companies were making horror titles, and there was even these small boutique labels like Twilight Time, which I did a really cool episode on that on the channel. And I would love for you to kind of give me your breakdown of getting into the world of, I guess, boutique is the
Mhm.
now Vinegar. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you get Madman from Vinegar Syndrome literally years ago on Blu-ray? I'm talking like 2011.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah.
So can you kind of tell me getting into that and buying boutique stuff and how do you change as a physical media collector where you're starting to not only review these titles and that sort of thing, but like looking at them with a keen eye, picture quality, this sort of thing. Tell me about that time period for you and getting into all that and learning about those companies.
Mm.
Because this is a time where it was the few, the proud that were doing this, and you're one of them. So,
Mhm.
the
Yeah, I mean, the boutique labels, like, you know, not to trample on Anchor Bay's, grave, but, they had really they'd really kinda gone off a cliff, especially after the Lustig era, and, I I remember, like, having a conversation with somebody and thinking like, "God, we who's gonna be the next Anchor Bay? We need a new Anchor Bay." And then all of a sudden, within maybe a year, it was like, here's just this plethora. Like Arrow was out there and they were doing their thing and they were making a lot of good, they were releasing a lot of good movies. And then all
was
of a
it
sudden,
if I can, I'm sorry to cut you off because I really want to
okay.
paint this picture. You mentioned Arrow.
Mhm,
For me, I don't, and this is just from my perception. This isn't what I'm saying is reality, but from my perception, Arrow doesn't really become an American company. I'm not saying that they weren't, but I don't feel like they were an American company until maybe 15 or 6, really
mhm.
16. So when you say Arrow during this time, paint me a picture of the titles you're talking about and where you would buy them from.
So Arrow had kind of taken up the mantle as the UK's answer to Anchor Bay. They were
Right.
releasing a lot of the same titles that Anchor Bay was releasing, but they were releasing them for that region 2
Like Dawn of the Dead and things like that.
market. Exactly. Yeah, they had all the same titles that Anchor Bay did. What made them desirable though is that they would go out and produce their own extras. So they'd have different extras or they'd have fancier packaging or whatever. And so that made them very desirable for people to want to try and import. And I can remember at that Sam Goody, they would have some of those imports in from
Oh,
Arrow.
this is interesting.
Mhm. They would bring some of those imports in, and those things would be insanely,
You
priced,
pay
as I
because
recall.
you got to pay for the fees, the import fees on the price of that movie,
Oh,
basically.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and you're right. They really didn't cross over until after Anchor Bay had died. That sort of opened the door for them, I think, to come over into the US and Canada in that region A or region 1 DVD area. Um, but they were out there doing their thing. So they were all, but again, yeah, they were kind of like the UK Anchor Bay, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but then all of a sudden, like, bam, there's Scream Factory, there's Vinegar Syndrome, there's Severin Films. There were some small companies like Code Red and Media Blasters, and occasionally they'd put something out that, I would run out and get, like, Code Red did, uh, oh Lord. I think they did. I can't remember, but I had a couple of Code Red releases that I ran out and got from them. So you had some smaller boutique labels out there releasing some good stuff. But then Scream Factory happened, then
Mhm.
Vinegar Syndrome happened, then Severin happened, then, you know what I mean, Synapse happened. There just seemed to be all of a sudden, like, all these boutique labels that were out there, and I don't remember exactly which one came first. Um, I certainly remember when Scream Factory came on the scene. That was that was huge, and
Mhm.
that, we talked about how exciting Anchor Bay was in their heyday during that golden era. Almost, or at least equal excitement, for me at least, and from, this was when social media was what it is. Huge excitement, huge buzz, huge hype for Scream Factory when they first came on the scene. So
Mhm.
much. It was, yeah, I would say that's sort of, there was another golden era right there
Mhm.
that happened just based on the amount of hype and excitement that was happening.
And I wanna get to that, but before we do, I wanna kinda go back to, like I said, this little nebulous time of 2011, 10, 12, even. What was it like being a physical media collector at that point? Because some of those companies you had to order. I think Twilight Time, I think when we did some research on this, they didn't put those in stores. I mean, were you privy to the Twilight Times and things like that?
The Twilight Time era that one completely, they didn't, I didn't like their pricing. There always seemed to be some kind of issue with their releases, as well as I recall. There was always something with color timing, or there was just something, there was always an issue with
Uh,
them. On top of that,
you know about the Night of the Living Dead fiasco with
there was
them?
all it seemed like there was every release was some sort of fiasco with them.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that they were limited editions and you're dropping like $50 per at least.
Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't want any part of Twilight Time. So that the Twilight Time era passed me by.
Was online shopping for physical media a big part of your collecting at this point, or are we still Sam Goody, FYE, that sort
Oh,
of thing?
at that point, I think it was pretty much entirely online.
Really?
Yeah, at that point, it was pretty much entirely online. Sam Goody was gone. The only really retail place nearby me at that point that sold physical media was Walmart. And I mean, like, you're not gonna pick up Vinegar Syndrome's Madman at Walmart.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of it was purchasing it directly from the label, pretty much.
Mhm.
Occasionally on Amazon or something like that. But you did mention Vinegar Syndrome. I remember when Vinegar Syndrome first sort of, uh, I remember when they first sort of blew up, and I don't remember if it was Madman, or it seems like they had a couple of smaller releases. Um, I'm trying to think, what were those? It's like Graduation Day. I think they did Graduation Day. They did, like, Don't Go Out in the Woods Alone, I think, maybe. But they started releasing some stuff that, like, the hardcore guys like you and I want, so that made them very exciting. They were, Scream Factory was dropping Halloween and Halloween 2 and Halloween 3. Vinegar Syndrome was dropping Madman and,
And
Graduation Day.
that had to have been a real eye-opening moment for you at that point too, because it's like, oh wow, this is different, because this isn't Dawn of the Dead or Zombie. This is
Mhm.
like sticking your hand deep in that barrel. I'm not calling it bad. I love Mad Men the way you do, but like
Mhm.
that had to have been like, like this feels illegal. A Blu-ray of Mad Men,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
they were, yeah, I looked at them like they were bringing out, Scream Factory was dropping the A-list stuff, and I love the A-list stuff.
Sure.
Vinegar Syndrome was bringing out the B and C list stuff, which I also love, and in a lot of cases, I get a lot more enjoyment out of the B and C list stuff. So I was pretty excited when Vinegar Syndrome kind of, raised their flag, and they were like, this is what we're dropping, and I was like, okay, let's go, hell yeah.
Let me ask you this. This is kind of a somewhat not a yes or no question, but the question is, how important do you think looking back was doing YouTube and getting into doing DVD updates, movie reviews, Blu-ray reviews, and things like that? How important do you think that was to you staying a physical media collector? Because at this point, it doesn't sound like you've had much burnout. Like, you know what? Oh, I've been buying movies for years. Like, I think I need to give it a rest. How important do you think that was to being a collector for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was definitely important because I would get excited for these releases, like, I re so I, I remember, I don't remember what movie it was, but it was one that, like, I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for, and finally it was out for delivery, and I don't know what happened. Um, like, instead of the FedEx guy or the UPS guy just leaving it at the door, they took it with them and left a note on the door. Oh my god, I saw red, I punched a hole in the wall, I was so mad. That's how much like, I wanted that physical media release so bad. I'd waited for it, and you took it away from it was right there, and you took it away, like, no. So, I mean, maybe that's that's a little crazy, yeah, but, I mean, that's how much I love physical media now. How much some of these releases mean to me if it's a movie that I love, It's like I wanna see I wanna have it in its best possible quality. I wanna know about the making of the movie. I want that making of featurette. I want that commentary. I want those interviews. So, um, yeah, it was very important. I don't think I would have burned out, because I'm still not burned out. I still love it. Um but it certainly helped to, and the fact that I wanted to review them and share them, that definitely fueled that fire of, like, wanting to get these releases and add them to the collection and build the collection and
Mhm.
make them mine, you know what I mean? So
So you talk about, as we're going through your story now, you talk about the release of Scream Factory. By this point, I was very aware of your channel. I'd been watching you for I guess I at least a year. At least a year. Maybe I think it was 2011, but I remember, it was pandemonium every day. We would hearing about Scream Factory, and you talk about this being such a golden era. Um, it's kind of hard to answer because you kind of talked earlier about Anchor Bay, but I could tell when you mentioned Scream Factory, I could tell you got excited. Is this the best time to be a physical, or specifically a horror physical media collector, as opposed to back in the day?
yeah, I mean, as exciting as Anchor Bay was really the only company doing it at that time. When Scream Factory was popping off, and those early that first year of Scream Factory, oh my god, just one killer release after another. But on top of it, you had all these other boutique labels that were, you know, out there in the game too. So it was just like, we've got this new kid on the block with Scream Factory, but holy crap, they've come out swinging. And yeah, it was super exciting. Like I remember sitting in my go ahead.
No. Please, please, please.
I was going to say, I remember sitting in my car, and this might have been the first time I'd even heard of Scream Factory, but like scrolling through social media and like, seeing like the Halloween 2 and Halloween 3 releases, collector's editions, and here's all the extras. And it's like, holy crap, like who is this Scream Factory? Who I've never heard of them before, but they're coming out guns blazing. And like shortly after that, here they're dropping like all these other great releases and a lot of stuff that had never made the jump from VHS.
Like
They
Prison.
dropped Prison, they dropped The Tele-Traded Sundown. So I mean, they were killing it. It was extremely exciting, and I was just gushing about Scream Factory. I would, whatever it was, they're releasing, I'm picking it up. Granted, most of them were movies they were the classics, but they were the collector's editions with the slip cases and all the new extras. So yeah, I would just gush about those releases, be so excited about them.
Yeah, I remember, man. I think one of the movies that I learned about from you reviewing it, and I remember I went on eBay and bought it, not Amazon, because the idea of using Amazon just was like a foreign thing to me, which is so silly looking back. But you reviewed The Burning, the Blu-ray, and not only this is how big of a fan I was of you. I remember this is one of the first times like you made a thumbnail where you actually put The Burning poster art on the thumbnail and it said Blu-ray review. I think it was even in yellow. And I was like, oh my God, Piz made it. He's got thumbnails. But you talked about that movie and you made it sound like it was just like this. It was like, you made it sound like it was dangerous, and it was. And it was, yeah, I was very fortunate that I was able to get in at that time. And even me, I look back and I said, if you tell me what's a perfect physical media release, I would tell you it's Halloween 3 and Halloween 2. I mean, that's probably will you agree that's probably a blueprint for, horror's hallowed grounds. You get the locations with them, making ofs. Like, are you like me? It's nice to look on the back and see bullet point of special features, but to have a body of work put together to tell a story about something like Standalone, I think is the name of it. It was the name of the Halloween 3 documentary. I mean, did you feel vindicated? This is kind of a weird question, but do you almost feel vindication for liking movies like Halloween 3 and stuff at that point when they get releases like that said, no, these movies are here to stay?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And especially, if you're somebody like, I think even at that time, like I think today, everybody likes Halloween 3, but at that time there was still it was still sort of the black sheep of that series. I think it was still the odd man out.
Sure.
But I think that release, honestly, is what changed most people's mind on that movie. Or at least made them, they either reappraised it because of that release, or it was the first time they saw it and they were like, hey, this is kind of fun, So I think that release really changed the perception of Halloween 3.
So yeah, I would say, here's the one question, because I really like for the purpose of this video is it's we're talking about your history as well, but try to get into your brain a little bit. This was a point where I remember very, very vocal minority, especially at this point, because this was 2013 on the internet. I do remember some people saying, oh, I'm not into this crap. They're just trying to make us buy all these movies again. We've already bought these on DVD and stuff. Was that notion even coming into your head at that point? Like, oh, I do already have 2 DVDs of Halloween 3, or I do already have, like 2 releases of Halloween 2, or et cetera, et cetera. Does that even cross your brain?
No, not when it came to those releases, because because of all the new extras, because it's it's high definition. To me, that's almost like a brand new release. That makes, when you buy that release, you can take the DVD off the shelf. You know what I mean? And put that thing in storage because you don't need it anymore. You've got the definitive Halloween 3. That's still the definitive Halloween 2 and Halloween 3 releases to me. Yeah, they got steelbooks. Yeah, they got 4Ks, but like
Landmark
to me,
releases.
those were definitely, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Piz, let me ask you this because I don't want to go too much longer. So let me give you a yes or no question, and then I want you to kind of elaborate.
Okay.
The yes or no question is this: was the Halloween Complete Collection box set the absolute highest point that Scream Factory has ever had?
In my opinion, yes.
And can you kind of, for the audience, because I think with like I said, you'd be surprised the number of people that are younger that have gotten into physical media that were alive, of course, but they weren't there during that moment.
No.
Was this an O.J. Simpson running away in the Bronco moment? Do you remember where you were when you heard about the announcement of this?
I don't remember where I was necessarily because I think my mind was just so blown when I heard that it's a complete release. All the movies, at least all of them up to that point, with the producer's cut of Halloween 6. And all the list of extras and stuff. Like I remember doing countless live streams where people would ask me, like, do you ever think we'll get a complete Halloween box set? And my response would always be no, because that series was spread up, like they're spread out among, like, you had Universal owned 2 and 3, Trancas owned 1 and 4 and 5, Dimension
Miramax,
owned
yeah.
6, and then like MGM was somehow involved in the Rob Zombie movies. It's like there's no way. And then to get the producer's cut of Halloween 6, which they could have released that 10 years ago. You know what I mean? They could have put that out in high def so many years before that box set. They just didn't want to. So to think that we could get all of those movies together, all of those companies could come together and make an agreement to put all those films together in one box set with the producer's cut in high def. I just thought it would never happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it did with the producer's cut and all those new it was all the old extras, new extras. It was the ultimate. It really was the ultimate box set. So for me, yes, when I look back on Scream Factory, and I know Scream Factory's still around, but when I look back on Scream Factory, to me, that's the high watermark. But that's kind of also where I think the wave broke, and it kind of with that it's kind of been downhill a little bit since. But that was definitely the high watermark.
I would love to get your thoughts on this because this is still a very important release to me. And I shared in your excitement at the time, but I understood your not disappointment's not the right word, but you did have some, well, it would have been nice moments when describing it when you got it. The question is, can you kind of give people a little bit of your remembrance of the announcement of the Paramount Friday the 13th tin set? And to me, this was even bigger, Piz, because I'm like you. I mean, I love Freddy, but Jason's right behind him. And I always tell people nothing's more fun than collecting Friday the 13th to me, even though I love Elm Street the most. Piz, I was really, really excited for the idea of the Jason set.
I was too. I remember, of course, I pre-ordered that thing as soon as I could. And
you were covering it too at the time, which was where I was learning about it. I mean, the air was palpable at this time, right? Because this was before the Halloween set, I believe.
Yeah,
this was 13. So yeah, I mean, it seemed impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Again, two different studios.
Like, I remember I was in a meeting all day, and, like, I was just watching my phone, like, "Has that thing been delivered yet? Is that thing been oh, it's been delivered. It's been delivered. Oh god, can this day hurry up and get over with?" But, like, as soon as I got home, I ripped that sucker open and, like, I just dove into it. And, yeah, it definitely was an in-house, uh production. It was definitely made in-house, and you knew that as soon as you opened the thing up, and immediately you're greeted with Willa Ford
from the remake.
from the remake. Not Jason, not Jason's mother, you know what I mean? Willa Ford. That was when I went, "Oh, really?" I like Willa Ford. She's easy on the eyes, but, like, I did not expect to see Willa Ford staring back at me
Well,
when I opened that
maybe
thing.
put her on the back of the case, considering it's the newest movie and it's the last movie.
Exactly, yeah,
You know what I
something like
mean?
that. Not right up front there. That place should be reserved. That should have been Betsy Palmer, you know what I mean? Um, and yeah, I mean, there were some other things about it that,
I think your biggest, I don't want to say gripe, that's not the right word, but your biggest criticism was come on guys. Like the digital code for Jason Goes to Hell is uncut, but the disc isn't.
yeah, see, I didn't yeah, that was ridiculous. Mm, like, nobody why even put the theatrical cut on the disc? Why put that on there? You know what I mean? Like, give us the digital cut. We don't even need, who wants to watch the theatrical cut of that? We want the, you know? So
That
yeah,
was Piz, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the first time that theatrical cut was available on home video.
I think you're right. Yeah, because the VHS release
Was uncut.
and the DVD release was the uncut. So, like,
And the laser disc was uncut.
yeah, so, like, why? Why? Put that on a digital or leave it, who cares? Like, that shouldn't even been
Yeah.
on there in the first place. But they also it also had, like, the book style, like, the discs went in, like, the pages or whatever.
I don't remember what you said about that though, Piz, and because it's been a long time. I remember when you got yours, did a video, and I was young. I'm obviously younger than you, so I was at that point in my life where I was transitioning really into make your own money, be your own man, start becoming,
Mhm.
do your thing, moving out and stuff like that. So it took me about a couple months before I was able to get it. And I would watch your video once or twice a week, just an excitement when I did get it. And I don't remember what you said, but I actually thought that the I don't know what kind of card stock that was or whatever, but the images when you were flipping through the book, I was like, this is I'm not a huge fan of that style, but I remember saying, "This is gorgeous," and I thought they used this really cool font with the movies, and the images had such this glossy look. I look back on that set, Piz, I don't know how you feel because it's not about how I feel, but I just gotta say, I look back on that set and I say, if you ever I tell people, if you ever do see it for a reasonable price, just please get it. I really it's with its faults and all, I just think it's a really cool piece of history. And the fact that it is the rated version, looking back now, kind of makes it maybe unique's not the right word, but it's an interesting hiccup.
It's an oddity. I think of that release as kind of, and I agree. I agree. Like, I love it. I still have it. Um, it's kind of it's just sort of an, I think it's an oddity because it's in the steel case, and even the front cover, it's Jason Goes to Hell, Jason. Like, it's just you can tell it was very much made in-house by somebody who probably wasn't a big fan of Friday the 13th or even had seen any of the movies. So, there is that. It's certainly a quirky
Mhm.
release.
Which kind of goes in hand with the way they did things a lot in the past. I believe
Mhm,
part the DVD for part 6 before the collector's edition had a picture of Roy on the back.
mhm.
Just
There's a
funny things like that.
there's a long line. The yeah, even the collector's edition DVDs had little hiccups on them too. So there was Paramount has not done that series justice when it comes to physical media.
Let me ask you this about I'm gonna ask this kind of summarized, and you can fill in the blanks if you wanna, first question is this: the Scream Factory era from about 2016 to, let's say, 2019. Thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down when you look back on it.
Oh, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
And you covered the Friday the 13th box set very extensively. You had a lot of the guys on your channel that were involved in working on it. Everybody is aware of the big hiccups on that box set. There was massive production issues in terms of like the actual box set. If people know about that, and you covered it, and I've covered it to no end, so I don't need to rehash a lot of that with you, but let me just ask you this. Had that box set come out without any issues, without the replacement discs, without this or that, would it have trumped the excitement of the Halloween box set, or can you never replicate the first announcement of a box set like Halloween?
I don't think it could have. No, I don't think it could have replicated the excitement for that one, because that one just seemed like for it to happen, it would have taken an act of God. There, but that's not to take anything away from that set. I mean, forget about the issues, and there were definitely issues with that one, big issues. But it's all the movies together. So some of them got some new extras. Some of them got new transfers. We got to see the uncut footage from part 2, which was
That
the
was
first time we ever
incredible.
saw that. And that's all a credit to Peter Bracke. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Peter Bracke. He tracked that footage down. He literally was handed a VHS tape that they had to put it in an oven, or they had to microwave it to be able to get the footage off of it. It was that old.
Yeah.
And the fact that the footage is that good is crazy. So that's all testament to Peter Bracke. But all the other guys that worked on that set, Justin Beam and Michael Gingold, they all did a tremendous job. It was all, because of their love of the series. And I'm a little biased because they did use some of my footage, or they used a lot of my footage from the camp where the first movie was filmed, which to me was a huge, for them to do that was like, still,
It's incredible. I was so happy
was,
for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's my series. I mean, I that's my series. So to have been a small part of that box set, really,
they can't take it away from you now.
No, yeah, that means a lot. So I am a little bit biased there, but yeah, it had its issues, but take those issues away, I still don't think it wouldn't.
There can only be one number one.
There can only be one number one. And I don't know if there's, if they had done the Nightmare set and it was like all 4K and they dug up like, all this missing footage or like all the unedited footage and like
uncut part 5, high def, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that'd be pretty close.
I think it would be. I think it could, Piz, if I could for a second, not because I'm a super fan of the series, but it's the bottom of the 9th. Bases are loaded, and if it happened, I think people would erupt in joy because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest with you. I think we're going to get an announcement. I knock on wood that they're going to put out a 4K of maybe part 1 this year.
It seems like it would be such a shame if they don't at least do something for the first one. It's the 40th anniversary, for God's sake.
That's why I say, and I've told people ask me, do you think they're going to do it this year? I've honestly said, if they don't, pack it up. Don't ask me about it. Don't even talk to me about it. It's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact Scream Factory started working on the box set. They did interviews. Whatever happened, and it didn't work out, but they were working on it.
That's
so
that's insane.
The last thing that that Cliff McMillan did an interview, and somebody asked him directly about it. And he didn't say anything about like, oh, we were working on it, but he said that they tried, but that New Line wanted to do it in house. So,
do you remember what year that was when you?
that was I did a video about it. I want to say it was it might have been last year. I don't remember, but I did do a video talking about it, and I had the footage of him saying that.
Oh, I do remember that. I do remember that. I'm sorry. I do remember that.
If they don't do it this year, I mean, yeah, I just don't see it ever happening, and I don't understand. I mean, I get it that maybe it's very sad. Like I grew up a Friday the 13th guy,
right?
But I still love Nightmare,
of course.
But Nightmare was the biggest franchise of the 80s.
That's the irony of the whole thing.
Yeah, yet it's like today, Halloween, Friday the 13th, even though there's not been a Friday the 13th movie in
Friday's
2009.
She's just like Jason. The series cannot die.
All of these other franchises are just more popular. Like it just seems like they're trying to almost erase Nightmare on Elm Street, or they're trying to downgrade Nightmare on Elm Street, which is so weird. Like you could do a video game for Nightmare on Elm Street. You could do. I mean, I know that the merchandise is still out there and still does really well. But like, what are you doing with the movies?
It's weird. It's almost like they're treating Freddy like they want to kill him, like you would in the movies. And I'm talking about Warner Brothers. Don't talk about him. Don't mention him.
Yeah,
and he's out there, but it's. You know what I'm saying? It's like you'll never not go to Spirit Halloween and not see something Freddy related, or Walgreens even. But yeah, you don't feel any effort on Warner Brothers' part, and a lot of people speculate it's because the Conjuring films are doing good. That's our horror movies.
Yeah, but I mean, it just seems like if they thought they could. They would make room for Nightmare if they thought it could make them enough money. And I know that they've explored different ideas for a new Nightmare on Elm Street film, all the way to like a CGI Freddy. That was something that they talked about. They've had different ideas that I've heard about from people, but just nothing comes to fruition. And a lot of the ideas don't sound that great, honestly. But it's so weird. Like that series is just sort of, I don't know. I don't want to say forgotten, but it's like they again, like you said it, like they want you to forget it almost. And if they don't do something this year with at least the first one, I just don't see it ever happening.
I agree. It feels like this is the last stand. It really does.
Yeah, it really does.
But if I can, Piz, so when we get to 4K, I know a lot of people that got into the format, and it was kind of a rocky relationship with them. Can you recall what persuaded you? Was it a title? Was it just that, well, this is my thing. I need to upgrade to 4K.
I don't remember there being really any hesitation other than like, I gotta buy a new player. Oh, and I gotta buy a 4K TV. But it just seems like that's the, Blu-ray was the best format for a while. Now you have 4K, which is better. Some people will say it's not, or they can't see it. They can't tell that there's that much of a difference. But I mean, I adopted 4K without really very much hesitation, and not just because what I do on my channel with reviews and whatnot, but because I'm a collector, and because I want my favorite movies in the best possible quality available.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember when you started watching some of these movies, were there some titles where you said, I don't know about this? Because I made the mistake of getting Zombieland 2 as one of my first 4Ks. And needless to say, I should have just gotten the Blu-ray, because there is a little bit of unevenness with 4K, especially newer movies. Do you recall having any sort of I don't know about this moments?
I don't necessarily remember those, but like I remember the moments where I'm like, oh damn, this is okay. So this is what 4K can do. Okay, wow. Okay. Like, I think what some people envision 4K being is like literally the image is jumping off the screen at you, or like it's like you're there with them in the scene or something like that. Like they expect everything to just pop. Um, and that's, there are some titles that absolutely do that. I remember, when I bought Blade Runner 2049 on 4K, I was
Mhm.
like, holy crap, this looks incredible. Every the colors were just so vibrant, and the detail, and wow, not every movie is going to be that way. I think what some people overlook with 4K from Blu-ray is just the levels of detail and clarity. And sometimes you can if you don't have a great TV, or like if you're sitting a mile away from your television, you're not going to pick that up. And people are maybe not like, yeah, I don't see a difference. But there are, I mean, there have been those times where, like, you'll see like the 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 DVD is too dark. Like they'll try to they'll do something with the image where they try to make it darker,
Right.
to make it clearer, which I don't quite understand that. But I have noticed that with some 4Ks that they're just darker than the Blu-ray.
I think Friday the 13th, oddly enough, was
Friday the 13th was one of those that I thought was darker. Yeah, that one seemed much darker. So
so let me ask you this, Piz, because like I said, this is about getting in your head. By this point, you've gone through a few cycles of getting some of your all-time favorite movies. For instance, we didn't talk about this, but I remember one of my favorite Halloween releases, the excitement for that Anchor Bay kind of book, the Halloween. It was like 2013. It was an Anchor Bay Halloween release. It was like a book, and you open up, there were pictures from behind the scenes in the movie.
oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
like that
remember
was
that.
really exciting. It was really exciting. And then of course, when Scream Factory comes out, putting out some of the sequels, out of this world. For instance, mentally, when you get Halloween on 4K from Anchor Bay, not Scream Factory,
Mm.
1 to 10, I mean, how are we feeling on the excitement level?
Um, I was excited for that. I don't remember that being a great 4K though. I don't remember the Anchor Bay 4K being
Yeah.
that great. I remember there being issues with that one. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I remember being kind of like, this isn't like, I don't I don't exact I think I may have reviewed it. I don't remember, but
You did. You did.
I do remember there were some issues with that one. Um, so I mean, I was excited, of course, to be able to see one of my favorite movies in the highest possible quality, but a little disappointed that it it, it didn't look right to me. I don't
Mhm.
remember, again, I don't remember what the issue was.
And at this point with physical media collecting, I guess the one of the last things I want to kind of get you to talk about is there is, a pretty vocal, there's some vocal people that would say this is the absolute best time to be a physical media collector, and this is the golden age. As somebody that has been through the Anchor Bay era, the golden age of the Scream Factory era, and now, I mean, do you think this is a golden age, or do you think it's
Hmm.
more of a
Uh,
competition age, or
Actually, I think a competition age is probably a very that would be the best way to summarize it, honestly, because you have so many different physical media boutique labels out there, all of them vying for not just your attention, but like what's left to be released. I think we're getting to that point where, like, what's left? And you're seeing companies like Scream Factory doing this, following the ruinous path that Anchor Bay did, which is just to release the same thing over and over again. Um, so
I,
yeah, I think so. I definitely would not say we're in a golden era. We have a lot of choice as far as who, what
what
boutique
what
label.
company? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we're kind of it's I know personally Like it seems like I'm buying less physical media these days. Like
Mm,
I don't remember what the last Scream Factory release was that I was like, immediately got to get it, or
mhm.
the last Vinegar Syndrome release was that I had. Okay, definitely got to get this. Um, and even like this stuff from the Severin Burial Ground release, I had to have it, but I already own Burial Ground. You know what I mean? So it's not like a new release. Um, so yeah, I think we're getting to that point where it's like, and I know there's still stuff to release, but
Like Blood
it,
Beach.
yeah, I mean, there's Blood Beach, there's Fright Night 2, there's Psycho Cop, there's Summer Camp Nightmare, there's Hunter's Moon. Yeah, there's still lots of stuff to release, but is that going to be stuff that more than just a few hundred people are going to buy?
Mhm.
Is it going to be worth these boutique labels time to spend all this money to track down the rights holder, to purchase the rights, to what I mean, to produce the copies, and only a few hundred people are going to buy it. So
Let me ask you this, Piz, because I think this is gonna be a good question for you. When Scream Factory put out the Halloween movies on 4K,
mhm.
and you got them, you got part 1 in the mail, for instance, or you went to Best Buy to grab it. I don't know what you did. I don't remember what you did, but that doesn't matter. You sit down on your couch in the man cave, you got it in your hands, and you look at it. Do either of these questions pop into your head? This is the last time I'm ever gonna be able to buy this movie on a high definite on a disc format, on a physical media release, or this is the last time I'm personally gonna buy this movie. Because I feel like there may be, as somebody who has been through the pivotal points of physical media, it's kind of a cliche question to ask because we're talking about this earlier, but how many times can you buy Halloween?
I mean, that's a really good question, and like I'm going to be we're we're going to have a new release of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out this year, a 40th anniversary or 50th anniversary release. I'm sorry, of Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out this year. I own that movie on every single format, and in some case, and like on DVD, multiple, Blu-ray, multiple. I've got at least 2 4Ks. I've got the Big Bertha release back there. I've got so many Texas Chainsaw Massacre releases. But this is the 50th anniversary release, right?
Yeah.
Am I gonna buy that thing? And I'm just like, I don't know. Most likely I will. But
It is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I mean no disrespect to Halloween, but Piz, this is the Texas Chainsaw
yeah,
Massacre.
no.
You know what I mean?
It's my favorite horror movie.
Right,
And I love Halloween just as much, really.
right.
But see, the thing with here's my issue, and I know that a lot of collectors face this issue too. You just run out of space. And like, at what point does it turn from a collection into a hoarding situation? You know? So like for me, I've got all of these different releases. You know what I mean? Some of them I'll give away, some of them I'll take to a used bookstore and trade in or sell or whatever. But I, I've been out of space for a long time. Do I need to add another movie that I already own to that space? That's kind of the quandary that I'm in. And I'm sure a lot of just collectors of stuff in general probably face that.
Mhm.
And when you see clutter creates clutter's not good for your mental state. So I think that's a quandary I found myself in, and I think that's probably something a lot of collectors
Mhm.
have to deal with as well. Like where you just run out of space.
Do you think you have one foot out the door?
Um, no, no. I mean, I still love it. I'm still excited about, certain releases. I'm still going to grab, certain releases if I find a good sale, or like, if like, Agfa released The Last Slumber Party recently on Blu-ray. That's an awful movie, an abysmal movie, but I love it. So, I mean, that was an immediate pre-order. I didn't think like, well, where am I going to put it? I've got no space for it. Immediate pre-order because I just wanted it. I'll deal with that later. But I mean, that is something that, I've got so many movies in storage. I've got stuff stacked up.
See,
so
you answered my question, because what I was wanting to get to, and I see it all the time, is people, and I understand it, they don't get excited when the same movies kind of get released over again. But it sounds like with you, it's 65-70%. I have to be pragmatic.
It depends on the movie. I think it really depends on the movie. Like at this point, I mean, there's just certain movies I'm just done with. Like I don't need any more Evil Dead releases. I'm done with Evil Dead. Done. All the Evil Dead movies I'm done with. I've got my fill. Dawn of the Dead I'm done with. That second sight 4K, that's all I need. I'm done with.
That was a Lifetime Achievement Award release for that movie.
Yeah.
I regret every day not grabbing that. I regret it every day.
I'm done with that one. And I think I'm pretty close, I think, with Halloween. I mean, unless we get like some really nice 4Ks with a lot of new extras for the Friday the 13th stuff, I might be hesitant about wanting to go 4K with all those. So I don't know. I think it really depends on the movie. I mean, you'd think I'd be excited about a 50th anniversary Chainsaw release, but I'm really just kind of like, kind of dreading it when it comes out, because I'm going to be having severe FOMO.
Right.
So
that was something I was gonna try to get in your head about, because I say it sometimes when I'm talking to Garrett about movies as a joke, but I'm like, I have so much anxiety about where I'm gonna put this. Like when we're talking about a new release and it's a real,
Well, and I mean, you mentioned like, you let the second sight Dawn of the Dead 4K pass you by. Now, if you want to go pick that thing up, you're going to have to get it off the secondhand market. And I don't, what's that thing going for on the secondhand market?
300.
300. Okay.
Actually a little bit more. I 300 is a decent price for it.
Yeah. So here's a release that I let slip by me that I went and picked up on the secondhand market, and awful movie. But like, I just felt like I needed it in my collection, and that's Cruel Jaws.
With the slip?
I didn't get it with the slip. The slip,
Jaws
they
5.
they want more for the slip than for the movie. They want more for just the slip than the freaking movie.
I ordered that, luckily, but yeah, it was gone in 60 seconds.
Yeah,
and they didn't make an announcement that it was gone. I don't remember. I just think it was just boom, gone. They acted like it never happened. Jaws 5.
And there's been that's not the only Severin release that's kind of happened to, where like it goes super quick and then it's like, yep, never coming back. So there's some of those that I'm sure there's others that I've missed out on that I wish I hadn't. But that one was one that I was like, damn. So I found one on eBay for what I thought was a pretty decent price, and I grabbed it. But yeah, they want. I could have bought just the Blu-ray itself twice for what they're offering for the freaking just the slipcase. It's insane.
Piz, this has been really fun talking about your basically history, your thoughts on physical media and everything, and what do you think the next 5 years looks like for you and for physical media? Is 4K it? And
I honestly, I don't see people adopting another format. People really haven't adopted 4K, because if you look at the sales, DVD still outsells Blu-rays and 4Ks. And 4K has the smallest little part of that market. Most people haven't adopted Blu-ray, let alone 4K. So I don't think there's going to be any kind of we're not going to see 8K. I don't think so. I just don't, because that's going to require another new player, another new television, and just based on physical media sales in general, especially of 4Ks, I just don't see it happen. I don't see any company going the 8K route. I don't, even though, like, Best Buy's kind of got out of the physical media business, at least in store. I mean, I don't think physical media is going anywhere within the next 5 years. I think we may see a couple of the boutique labels not being around in 5 years. But that niche collector's market, I mean, there's still going to be the boutiques out there releasing stuff that, for guys like you and me.
Yeah.
So it may continue to be sales may continue to be smaller and smaller, but I don't see physical media going anywhere in the next 5 years.
What about you personally? I mean, do you still, look, just for a second, you talk about this Texas Chainsaw 50th anniversary set coming out. Is there not that little kid inside of you still that's just like, yeah, my favorite movie?
Well, I mean,
forget the space, forget the adult stuff you have to worry about with it. Is that little kid inside of you still just being like, oh yeah?
I don't know, maybe just a little bit. I mean, I purposefully didn't really look at what the extras or what the little, the little accoutrements that are included. Like, is there going to be like a yellow apron? And I did see that it's going to be in some kind of packaging shaped like a chainsaw, which, I mean, that's, to somebody like me, I mean, that's where the little kid comes out, like, oh God, I gotta get it because the box is shaped like a chainsaw. So I purposefully tried to not look at too much of what the extras are or anything, so that little kid wouldn't, pipe up inside and say, get it. So I don't know. I mean, the little kid is definitely still there, and I mean, the little kid definitely spoke up for me to grab this. So he's still there. He's still kicking. And yeah. Well, so yeah, in 5 years, I mean, I'm still going to be collecting. I will hopefully have come up with a more streamlined approach to storing, or I'm just going to have to buy a bigger house. I don't know.
That's one way to solve it.
That's one way to solve it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this. Piz, I really thank you for giving me a lot of time. I didn't plan on going this long, but it was just a great conversation. I didn't want it to end.
I feel like I've rambled on incoherently. I feel like I've not answered anything.
Well,
straightforward.
I think I've figured out what my audience likes, and to get into your brain, because you collected all because it's such this the idea of this Anchor Bay era, to a lot of people, it's just it's just the idea, because they didn't experience it. It's so cool to hear about.
Or I mean, it's like the video store era. How do you describe what it was like to go to the video store to somebody who never, video stores were dead when they were born? You know what I mean? How do you describe that to somebody who didn't actually live it? I mean, it's very difficult. So, but there's old fogies like me out there who lived through it that still has some memory of it.
That's right. So guys, listen, if for some reason you aren't subscribed to Piz's channel, please go over to Pizowell. Piz is on Instagram. He's on Twitter. I don't know, Piz, you got your Facebook page too. I remember I saw you had a Facebook post blow up real big. You were showing, you weren't making fun of the guy. I don't want to give that impression whatsoever, but you were showing a picture of this guy who, and I think he even cropped his face out, but like these people are going to this convention to not even stand next to the actors,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
God knows how. Yeah, people, please, when you go to these conventions, make sure you know what you're paying for. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely was not making fun of the guy. If anything, I mean, I felt sorry for the guy because, like,
Right.
when you're in, I'm sure he did not walk up to that. I'm sure he did not have in mind that he was going to be, there were going to be big boxes separating him from the celebrities and him having to stand so far away. But like when you're in that moment, like, what do you do? Turn around and be like, "Hey, I want a refund. Screw you."
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I just kind of felt bad for the guy, honestly. And
I think everybody
I
did.
heard I heard so many different, like, oh, they were charging 200, they were charging 300, they were charging. I was like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
ugh,
So
but
anyway,
yeah,
guys, it's exciting on Piz's Facebook is what I'm getting at. So check out
there you go.
Pizowell on Facebook. Piz, again, thank you so much. Let's get you to that 100K, man. Hopefully, it's gonna happen soon.
That would be great. I hope so. Yeah, definitely. That'd be great. I'd love it. Yeah.
So
Check out the channel. A lot of good, silly fun goes on over there. A lot of, and of course Jeremy has, he does a lot of cutting up and,
yeah.
entertaining over there.
Well, Piz, here's to hoping we get some really cool announcements. Hopefully, something like Elm Street this year, and I'm hoping it's gonna be a really fun Halloween season. We're gonna approach
Oh yeah.
not too soon, but I always get a little excited a little early, so it's always fun on your channel and everything, and it's just everything's fun during that time. But listen, man, thank you. This wasn't the first time, but hopefully it's not the last time we talk together like this again. I walk away learning a lot, and I just really appreciate talking to you. So thank you so much, man. Had a
Yeah,
great
no, yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
There you go. Thank you guys. We'll see y'all next time. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.